Hey, what is up guys, and welcome back to my channel. So, today I'll be launching a new series called Watchbase, and what Watchbase is all about is going through the basics and sharing the knowledge about watches so that this wonderful hobby can become more accessible to everyone. Because when I speak to people about watches, the thing that I get the most is that they don't really know how to describe watches, and so they don't know what they want from a watch and end up only going for ones that look nice or never end up buying one at all. So, for this first episode, I'll be going through the terminologies used in describing a watch and some basic components to hopefully help people start understanding watches a bit better. And in my other videos, you might have heard me talking about things like the bezel, crown, crystal, case, hands, dial, movement, bracelet, and so on. And if you're wondering what I mean when I say these things, let's break it down. When it comes to describing the size of a watch, you'll generally hear three main measurements. These are the diameter, lug to lug, or width and thickness of a watch. The diameter of a watch is usually measured perpendicular to the lugs and taken from one extreme of a case or bezel to the other. For example, my Dan Henry watch here has a 39mm diameter, meaning that the dimension from this end of the watch to the opposite end is 39mm. Watch measurements can be a bit tricky because different brands can define measurements differently. As you see, the bezel of the Dan Henry overhangs the case sides, and some brands measure directly from the case, while others measure from the bezel. The diameter of a watch generally dictates how large it looks on your wrist, and as you gain more experience and try on different watches, you'll get a feel of what range of watch diameters fit the best on your wrist. For example, on my 6.5-inch wrist, I found that watches ranging from 36mm to 40mm fit the best. The second important measurement is the lug to lug measurement, and that is from the end of one lug down here to the end of the opposite lug. What this measurement indicates is how wide the watch looks on your wrist. So for example, if I put on my Dan Henry watch here, it has a 48mm lug-to-lug distance. You can also take the measurement for the width of your wrist, so from this point to this point. And to have a well-proportioned watch that fits your wrist, you generally want to keep that lug-to-lug distance less than the width of your wrist. Now, when describing the design and makeup of the watch itself, we have a few main terminologies. The first one is the bezel. The bezel of a watch is the ring that surrounds the face of the watch. So for each of these watches, I'll trace the bezels. The bezel serves to protect the watch crystal as well as having other functions depending on the watch type. There are numerous types of bezels out there, and the main one you might encounter are the dive time bezel. So for example, on my Seiko dive watch, you have a rotating bezel that has a bezel insert attached, which can be used to time up to 60 minutes. The unique feature of a dive time bezel is that it rotates only in one direction anti-clockwise. The second common type of bezel that you might encounter is the tachymeter bezel on chronograph watches. So what this tachymeter bezel allows you to do is measure the average speed of a vehicle based on elapsed time and a certain distance. Tachymeter bezels are generally very thin and don't rotate. Now, you may also see some watches that don't have anything special surrounding its crystal. And these watches also do have a bezel as well, it's just that their bezels are plain bezels. In some other models that you may have encountered, such as the Rolex Datejust, these bezels can be finished differently, like with the fluted bezel. Next up, we have the crystal of a watch, sometimes called the glass. The crystal is the transparent piece that seals the dial and hands in from the front, and it is very prominent as it's just above the dial of the watch. There are various types of crystals, such as acrylic, mineral glass, and sapphire, but the most popular crystal by far is the sapphire crystal due to its scratch-resistant properties. So, crystals also come in different shapes as well. For example, on my Seiko here, you can see that the crystal is flush to the bezel, and this is what we call a flat crystal. However, on my Dan Henry, you can see that the crystal pops up just above the bezel, and this is what we call a box-shaped crystal. These type of crystal designs were popular in vintage watches, and it gives the watch a nice elegant pop-up effect to the front. Box-shaped crystals are usually made from acrylic because it's quite hard to work with sapphire to make this kind of shape. Now onto the crown. The crown is generally situated on the right-hand side of a watch, and what the crown does is allow you to manually wind the watch up, set the hands and the date if your watch has a date function. So as you see, if you pull out the crown, you're able to manually set the hands to the correct time. Next up, we have the handset and dial of the watch. So the hands and dial make up what you see on the face of the watch. On my Seiko here, you have the hour hand, minutes hand, and seconds hand. You can differentiate the hour hand from the minutes hand, as generally the minutes hand is longer. In terms of hand and dial design, there are numerous styles out there, and each brand usually has its own distinct style. For example, Tudor almost always feature their snowflake handset. On chronograph watches, you might see that the seconds hand doesn't tick like other watches. The reason for this is because the seconds hand on the chronograph movement is not actually this hand. Chronographs have their running seconds hand on one of its subdials. For example, the Dan Henry one is in the 6 o'clock subdial, and you can just see it ticking away here. This hand in a chronograph watch is actually called a chronograph hand, and when you actuate the chronograph, it is the stopwatch hand that counts the running seconds. Next up is the dial. The dial of a watch is a flat disc that sits underneath the crystal. And if you look on my Seiko, the dial is made up of the face and the hour markers. Each watch design will have a different face and different markers. On this Seiko, it has dots for hour markers, a rectangular marker at 3, 6, and 9, and a triangular marker on the 12 o'clock. This type of design is very popular, and you might see it on your favorite dive watches such as the Rolex Submariner. Now on the dial, you might see on the 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock a cutout window with a number. This is the date window. Depending on the movement of the watch, some watches will keep track of the date and others will not. Another part of the dial is the chapter ring. The chapter ring is the thin ring beneath the crystal that encircles the dial, and I'll point it out to you now. There are many different designs for chapter rings. Some of them have 60 hash marks for seconds and minutes indicators, while others can just be plain with nothing printed on them. The different styles of chapter ring just comes down to the design and functionality of the watch. Now onto the movement. The movement of a watch is what powers the watch, but it's usually a part that we aren't able to see because it's hidden behind the caseback. So in this Seiko watch, the movement is just behind this caseback piece. But on many watches, watchmakers have come up with a see-through caseback, which is made of a crystal inset into the caseback, allowing you to see the movement inside. As you can see, in this Longines watch, it has what we call a display caseback. I like display casebacks because it lets you see the artisanal work that watchmakers produce for watches. If you're interested to know more about watch movements, I will be doing a video in the future to cover that, so stay tuned. Generally, the most important things to know about watch movements is the rated time telling accuracy and the power reserve, as these are the things that affect the function of the watch. And finally, onto the bracelet. The bracelet of a watch is a piece that attaches the watch head to your wrist and makes it a wristwatch. Let me bring in my Tudor Pelagoth to demonstrate. So this is the watch bracelet. It consists of the Endlink, which is the link that connects the watch head to the bracelet, Midlinks, which are the links that make up the majority of the bracelet, and the Clasp, which is the thing that allows you to close the bracelet around your wrist. Now, to substitute for bracelets, watches also come on straps. And there are many different types of watch straps out there, which I will cover in a separate video. But some of the more popular ones are the rubber strap. Rubber straps are generally used on dive watches due to their water-resistant properties and flexibility. The leather strap. Leather straps are generally paired with watches that don't have a high level of water resistance because leather doesn't mix well with water. They are the earliest types of watch straps and as such are quite timeless and pair well with many outfits and occasions. And there is also the Nato strap. The Nato strap is a one-piece fabric strap which was widely used during war times and as such pair well with military-style watches. Nato straps are also good to use if you're using your watch in extreme activities. So, that was all I had for this very first episode of Watchbase. Please let me know in the comments what you liked or disliked about the episode, and if you had anything in particular you wanted me to cover on this series, let me know down below. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe to support the channel and help me bring you more independent watch content. And as always, I'll see you next time.